tested Ron? And does God test people? I'm gonna get a little biblical on all of you today, because when Ron was tested through the back pain, an abscessed tooth, and a possible kidney stone, he said something interesting. He said, this test, it didn't come from God, it came from Satan. And you know what? That got me thinking. God tested people in the Bible though, right? I'm gonna focus on trying to settle this today, because if we have the thought, did God do this to me? Then it totally causes double-mindedness and confusion and stands in the way of our battle to victory through all these trials. So I want to tell you right now that I don't have the answers, of course. I did find my way through this one though, and I promised myself when I gave my life to Christ that I would never shy away from looking at hard topics, because we shouldn't, right? If it's truth, then we have nothing to fear. It should stand under every question, under every light, under every scrutiny, and every magnifying glass. So let's look at it together. So I look in the Bible for the answers, of course, and God does in fact test people. So the biggest testing I can think of is in Genesis 22. Everyone knows the story of Abraham. Abraham was promised a miracle child by God when he was 75, and he conceived when he was pretty much a crypt keeper. So he has this miracle baby at around 100 years old, and maybe 10, 15 years later, God tells him to sacrifice his one and only child. He basically puts him on the altar, kills him, and burns him. He doesn't do it, but he comes close. At the last minute, when Abraham was about to kill his son, God pretty much said, wait, it was all a test, don't do it. So I'm still packing this whole thing, by the way, because it seems kind of cruel, but we'll tackle this on another day. But this makes it really clear, right, that God sends tests, hard ones to us. But wait a minute, then there's James 1:13 that says, let no one say when he is tested, I am tested by God. For God cannot be tested by evil, nor does he himself test. So a lot of the versions use the word tempt, and I looked up the Greek word, and it's parazo, I don't know how to pronounce that, which means to test, to try, to prove, a trial or provocation. So this verse is very clear cut. He does not test. So what's the deal? Is God bipolar? Is he saying two different things? I was meditating on this, and another verse came up. Mark 10:21-22. This rich young ruler came to Jesus sort of bragging and saying, hey, Jesus, I've done all these things. I'm going to heaven, right? And God says, actually, why don't you go sell everything and give to the poor, and you have the treasures in heaven? And of course, the guy doesn't do it, right? You'd think that this is a teaching on prosperity and how being rich is somehow wrong. And I thought that too at first, but I noticed that Jesus only said this to that one person. Apparently Matthew was rich too. He was a tax collector. Why not say this to Matthew before he started following Jesus? He didn't say it to anyone else. To me, this is a testing of this guy's heart. Jesus essentially asking him, do you love me more than anything? And Jesus knew that his heart loved money more than God himself. But the ruler was in denial. He doesn't know. So Jesus was trying to show him really what was really in his heart. And I noticed something interesting. It says Jesus looked at him with love before he asked him to sell all his belongings. It wasn't to be cruel. It was with love that Jesus showed him where his heart truly lies. This was the turning point for me. I thought, aha! So I noticed a thread amongst all his tests. Let's look at one more. Deuteronomy 8, when it says God tested and humbled the Jews for 40 years in the desert. But notice how it says in that exact same chapter that their clothes didn't wear out on them for 40 years and their feet did not swell. So he kept them fed, he kept them clothed, healthy, and safe. He never went, well, you know what, let's swell their feet as a test and see what happens. In fact, he wanted love and trust from these people, and he tested them by feeding them and keeping not a single one sick. So I realized from looking at all these tests that the link is he does not test with disease, sickness, or tragedy. I think that's what Ron meant. God can use them, sure. When the enemy sends things your way, he will use the bad and turn it to good and grow your faith through it. But it's important to note and differentiate that he did not send it, and he is not the cause of your pain according to the Bible. So what does a testing from God look like? Well, if we look at all these verses, he tests our heart by instruction and prompting, usually, and hard questions that make you look at yourself and reveal to you what you didn't know about yourself. And he does it all with love. It's a small differentiation, I know, but it's really important to settle it within yourself, what you really think of God and who he is. If you're out there confused and asking questions, that's fine. That's good, actually, because he answered me when I was looking for answers. And I believe that he'll answer you too. But you don't have to wait until all your questions are answered to follow him. And you can figure it out on the journey with him, because learn from my decade-long journey that Jesus is the answer to all your questions. If you want to find out who Jesus is today, repeat after me. Jesus, I have a lot of questions, but I know you will answer it. Jesus, today I give my life to you in faith that you have washed me clean, forgiven all my sins, and healed all my diseases on the cross. Lead me the way to a new life, for the old me has died today. Amen. If you said that prayer with me, let me know in the comments. I want to pray for you. See you at the next miracle.